Hello and good time of day to all of you, my friends, here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Welcome to my live show, whatever Russian schoolboy knows. And last minute change of plans. I was actually thinking of doing part 2 of my China presentation in a tournament that I played in China. I did it last week. Showed you some exciting games from there, and I thought of making a complete presentation by showing some other games and telling you more. But then, of course, things happened, right? Well, you know what happened. World Rapid Championship happened. Yeah, and it just captivated me for 3 days. I was just following like every game. Well, from 6 o'clock in the morning my time. Of course it was 7 server time, but anyway, 4 a.m. Pacific. But I mean, I just could not take my eyes off. It was such a show. I don't know, I would like to hear your opinion if you like the tournament, and we're gonna talk about the final results, of course. And I'll show you some games. Yeah, but first of all, tell me, do you like this? Do you like rapid chess? Alright, so let's compare classical, rapid, and blitz. Of course, there are things in between, and some people may say that what they played was game in 15 minutes, not 25. So that's a little bit different from rapid chess as we know it. Used in tie breaks in World Cup tournaments. There they start with 25 and then they go to 15. But in my opinion, I didn't really see any drop off in quality of play, 15 or 25. It seemed like there was a pretty decent quality of games, I would say. So I would like to hear your opinion. Well, do you think that's good? And how do you rate in terms of your preference, rapid, classical, and blitz? Give me a shout, guys. Give me a shout. Tell me what you like. In the meantime, so the story of the tournament was that Vasily Ivanchuk, well, I was gonna say he finally won a world championship. Then of course, Leon corrected me. He said, nah, he had already a world championship title, winning the 2007 World Blitz Championship. What's cracking? Well, World Championship Rapid, recapping this tournament that went for 3 days and finished yesterday. So Vasily Ivanchuk won it, That surprised a lot of people, of course, but pleasantly surprised, I believe. Well, Vasily Ivanchuk, since his emergence in the late 1980s, has always been one of the most exciting players in the world circuit. And a lot of people thought, as he elevated his game and won the Linares tournament, I believe in 91, well, people expected him to challenge for the world championship title, challenge Kasparov. It didn't happen. Well, not only that, in all these classical events, during Kasparov time and after Kasparov time, Ivanchuk was just not able to put it together. Candidates tournaments, well, just story of never-ending disasters for Vasily. And even in the knockout championships, which he played quite a few, well, he came close, and particularly I remember 2001, in Moscow, when he defeated Anand. Finally, he was able to get by Anand in the semifinals, and everybody thought, that, okay, the final is just gonna be a piece of cake. He was playing that very young Ruslan Ponomarev, and guess what? He lost. I mean, a tragedy. I don't know. Vasily, he flies on these divine wings of tragedy, right? It's always something. It's always a terrible blunder or losing on time or simply losing his composure. And we thought, okay, his best days were over. And indeed, in recently, in past few years, Ivanchuk was almost invisible, right? He didn't get any invitations, all these Grand Chess Tour tournaments, they went without him. And Vacancy and Dortmund and all those events. Where was he? No, he played some tournaments, some team competitions. He actually skipped the Olympiad this year, right? The Ukrainian team did quite well without him, but he skipped the Olympiad because he was busy with another event. Okay, Dushan, hello. Good to see you here. Okay, so we have Borgs, who... Oh, no, it's Borsch. Oh, pardon me. Well, I didn't... It's hard to see. I need to make this font a little bigger. Okay, so we have Borch 100 telling me that he likes Rapid. I love Rapid, you know. I think it's exciting to watch. I even liked playing it, although I was never good at that, but I always enjoyed those chances to play Rapid events. Wouldn't mind doing it again. Well, yeah, he won a lot of individual medals. He was always the motor of the Ukrainian team. But do you know what event he chose over the Olympiad? Where he went and who and what he played? You probably baffled because what event could be there during the Chess Olympiad when everyone is there, every chess player? So the answer is, it wasn't chess he played. No. Okay, more supporters, you know. So we have Doan Williams telling me likes watching. Always plays with big ideas. Rapid gives him time to get going. Well, he's probably not too shabby in the blitz, you know, like, and the talent like this and the experience. Well, I think he's gonna stay force in Rapid events. Maybe indeed, you know, Rapid is the golden middle because experienced players, it's not only Ivanchuk who played well in this past 3 days. Anand also played extremely well. And Anand had kind of bad luck in some of his games. I was watching, particularly when they're in head-to-head encounter, blundered terribly already, probably in a winning position. Gave Ivanchuk this necessary point. It could have been Anand. Yeah, I think the golden middle there. So experienced players, they still have some time, you know, to double or triple check their tactics so they don't blunder. Well, not every time, right? Yet, you know, they can take intuitive decisions, which is essential in rapid chess. And they also have vast knowledge of chess theory openings. And they can choose and they can play. Basically, it's almost like they're immune to modern fashion. But it's only the greatest one who can do this. Actually, Boris Gelfand also, it's not too bad in the Rapid. He did well in the Nutcracker tournament. Alright, so anyway, but we should probably start with this game, right? Ivanchuk Carlsen. Because this game, even if it was played in round 7, only halfway through, not even quite. There was altogether 15 games played over 3 days. But this game had a lasting impact on the tournament, and ultimately it decided the outcome. So, Carlsen. Okay. We'll talk about Magnus a lot, because Magnus's comeback was very impressive. But first, before he had to mount a comeback, he had to dig himself a little hole. And it started in rounds 1 and 2, where he, as usual, Magnus had a hard time getting into the tournament. He should have lost his first game. His opponent, Siriya Ganguly, the Indian Grandmaster, missed mate in 3. And generally speaking, he was totally winning up a piece, you know. There was no need, you know, even for the mate. And then Levon Pansulaya, well, somewhat less known player from Georgia, defeated Carlsen in I don't know, kind of convincing game. But then Magnus, of course, became Magnus. So he won a bunch of games. And when they reached round 7, they were level with points. And I think not that far behind the leaders. There was Anton Korobov of Ukraine and Shakhriyar Mamediyarov. And Yeah, guys like this. Anyway, so Ivanchuk starts with d4 and Magnus goes d5. And then the smooth queen c2. Okay, it's well known, of course. So first thing for Ivanchuk, right? So he wants to avoid sharp opening lines. Now you say like, why? Isn't Ivanchuk a sharp player, one of the greatest tacticians? And well, yeah, that is true. But here he won't be dealing with tactical positions on equal terms if he ventures into the Botvinnik variation or things like this. No, he made great contributions into a theory of the sharpest lines. The Botvinnik variation itself, he played it with black. Now, I remember our encounter back then when Vasily was only 17 years old. That was quite a battle. I thought I was well prepared, and in the end, I had to look for perpetual, which I was lucky to find. And of course, his remarkable Queen G7 move, that Russian novelty, and giving up the queen against Shirov, all these things. But these days, well, Ivanchuk is smart, right? He just doesn't want to get into this kind of stuff. So he plays Queen C2. All right. Magnus goes E6, and now Knight D2. Well, they were not strangers. The players were not strangers to this line. Yep, he played the checkers tournament exactly right. Exactly right. Well, Vasily Ivanchuk actually has some quirky hobbies, in life. For example, not too many people know that Vasily is a checkers player, right? And he played checkers always. Well, in quite some level, for sure in master's level. He's not among world's best, but I think he started playing on 64 board and then he graduated to 100 square board, which of course much more complex game. And he's really taken his time learning this game and he likes to play it. So intellectual challenge. Among other interesting hobbies that Ivanchuk has, how about speaking Turkish? I mean, Turkish. Alright, so he speaks English just like most of traveling chess players do. Well, maybe in a halting way a little bit, like not as good as some others, certainly not Peter Swidwar's level. Absolutely, but nonetheless, he can express himself, but that's kind of like, necessity. But his passion with languages, found itself in Turkish, the Turkish language. And he reads Turkish poetry in Turkish. How's that? Amazing man he is, of course. Now, well, the players were familiar with this because ironically 7 years ago, they had the same line, only the covers were reversed. Carlsen was white. And black, of course, can do the usual knight d7 thing, and then, already, when white goes to the Catalan, fine, he goes to the Catalan, but he already committed his knight to d2, which is way less aggressive than knight f3, knight c3. And black can play the old kind of closed Catalan positions without fear. But there is this move as well. Pawn takes and then immediately followed by c5. Okay, so white takes because he doesn't have support to the d4 square, of course, the queen is moved away. And capture. And now white has a wide choice of moves. There is g3, there is bishop f4, there is e3. Ivanchuk played this move. Interestingly enough, it doesn't really matter what white plays, I think, in this position. Black still has to solve the same problem, right? What to do with the bishop on c8. And it's best done by the most direct move, b5. b5 actually is also playable against g3. Just like that. Yeah, black will have the time to put the bishop on b7 to oppose the Catalan bishop. In our situation also, not castles, b5. Now, the white knight has to go to e5, obviously, the bishop steps back. And now when white does e3, I assume, there's gonna be castles. No, well, as I said, masters level, draughts or checkers, But was it the 100 square board? Mathemagica, please tell me. And I assume it was the 100 square board. I know the Dutch, they have a great school of checkers. I remember the names from the old days. Tony Seybrandts and Wimmersma, I think that was the next world champion. So the great players, and I'm glad the tradition continues in Holland. So returning to chess in this position, obviously that pawn is taboo, and black is about to solve his main problem with the bishop by putting the bishop on a nice diagonal. The white bishop, in the meantime, remains blocked by this pawn. So I assume before is the move, but then black plays a5. That counterattack that comes very quickly, and I think black equalizes. Interestingly enough, Ivanchuk probably expected that. He didn't particularly mention b5, but he said, no, old boring 8x8. Well, I don't know. I heard some talks that 8x8 has already been figured out, and they actually have to start from preset positions, because otherwise, when they play main lines, what used to be considered main lines, it's just forced draw. Okay. And Ivanchuk loves playing chess in Cuba. Well, who wouldn't, I wouldn't mind playing in Cuba myself. Just didn't have a chance, being an American citizen so many years. And who knows, times may be changing over there in the US-Cuban relationship, business and otherwise, and maybe I'll be able to play. But obviously not the top group. I'm not planning on the top group. Anyway, so a3. So Ivanchuk said that after this, white is already better. So I gather from this that he expected b5 and thought that b5 was the best move. Okay, how bad is this whole thing? A somewhat unusual position of the knight on c4, but no, black has certain problems here, and Magnus didn't look exactly comfortable, and here on move 10 he played a very unfortunate move. He played queen c7. It's almost like he was trying to return back to the b5 idea. Now, why didn't he play it right away? Obviously, because of knight a5. Now that is a better square than e5, because it stops the black bishop from coming out. And white can later throw in the other knight to fight for the c6 square, which is essential. Once he puts the knight on c6, well, he'll obtain a bishop pair at very least, and maybe more. So b5 is no longer appropriate, but an attempt to get back to it, well, by Magnus was unfortunate. Now, I mean, obviously, Magnus is Magnus. Well, the opening as the stage of the game, the openings probably remain his weakest link, if you wish. It's simply because of lack of interest. He just doesn't have that desire, to study openings, and he doesn't have the. But in a way, I need to rephrase it. In a way, it helps him a lot with his chess, because, first of all, he doesn't have great expectations out of the opening. He only wants a playable position, even with white. So when he gets it, he doesn't look back, he's happy, and he plays and, outplays people. Regularly, regular Magnus Carlsen win is just, we've seen a lot of them. In the rapid part, in the blitz today, I mean, seriously, he scored, 10 out of 12, and despite the loss in the head-to-head to Sergei Karyakin, anticipated matchup, but okay, whatever, just a blitz game. He's still level with Karyakin, and I don't know, with 10 out of 12, and then they have 9 more rounds to go tomorrow. Anyway, so Magnus, but sometimes he kind of breezes through the opening stage, and the mistakes could creep up here and there, but why should he change his approach? He sticks with what works. All in all, he remains the top player in all 3 disciplines, classical, rapid, and blitz, which he's proven again lately. So he defended his title by beating Karyakin. Granted, it happened in rapid chess, but almost won the rapid tournament. Ivanchuk won, but he won by better tie breaks. There was a three-way tie also. Grishuk was there. But anyways, this was unfortunate. I'm thinking, if b5 is not good and he plays b6, and now, of course, white goes forward. And then we have this. And suppose white goes right away, which I'm not sure he should. Now, after this, bishop d3, g6. No, white has a promising position. Of course, he's looking maybe at the right moment to play knight d6 to open up this diagonal. He's looking to attack with h4, but he has to worry about knight f4. And if he plays queen d2, then knight f4 comes anyway, I believe. So this is how that queen is useful on the d file. And black, for now, doesn't play knight d7, because he needs to interfere with white's play. And possibly this position is just okay for black. Of course, e5 is not forced, but anyway, b6 probably had to be played. It's the lack of better options. But came queen c7, and there's a difference now. When white played e4, now if you do the same thing, right? e5, knight d5, bishop there at tempo. Played g6, I don't know, if you want to play h6, but I don't know if it would really matter. Maybe h6 is slightly better in this situation, but after g6, white now plays queen d2. And there is no knight f4, and then white also threatens to move the knight away with the tempo, so the queen really doesn't belong in the c file. Yeah, I like that about Magnus too. Well, it's sort of, I mean, think about where we would be without Magnus. Suppose if the Kasparov approach, it's like trying to out-prepare everybody, out-prepare the world, and always look at those long variations. Now, of course, with computers. If that approach to games still was the mainstream, I don't think we would have interesting games. We would have complicated games, but with the large input of infusion of computer moves, it would become simply incomprehensible. Sometimes, I look at something that computer generated and I go, okay, stop right here. Well, the computer is losing me. This is the thing, we can't keep up, right? At some moment, it just stops making sense. And if it stops making sense to you, then you won't be able to replicate it in your play. So then the whole question becomes moot. Unless you follow Kasparov's quest of always proving that he was always right. And using the computer variations just to support, his point of view and his previous play. Which is, I believe, somewhat intellectually dishonest. Because, when you have the agenda, then you tailor your research to the agenda. We've seen this a lot, in Kasparov's books. He actually stopped writing books. Some people wonder why. I think maybe he realized, that this approach, has exhausted itself because, pretty much anybody can see those things if they're suggested by computers anyway. So we go back to this thing. So anyway, and he lashed out, Magnus did with b5, and then that's a terrible endgame. I mean, white has all the perks here, right? 2 against 1. Great knight on a5, still development problems. Even has better development here. So Magnus tried to minimize the damage, the best way he could. So somehow he trapped that bishop on c6, right? I mean, clearly the piece that needs to go there is the knight. well, that's a big family fork on the whole thing. But where to move the bishop? It doesn't seem like the bishop has any squares. And now it's great about Ivanchuk here. So he is... I mean, he's really a problem solver in chess. You know, when he just addresses it immediately, the main point. So as I said, you know, like the bishop has to leave c6 to clear out that square for the knight. And it has to be done. And he stopped here and he looked. He didn't play a move, an obvious move. There were very easy moves here that would probably retain white's advantage. But he played absolutely the best. No, knight on the rim, you know, but first of all, the rim is now in the opponent's territory. This is somewhat different story, right? I mean, it's not like we're talking about this knight sitting on a2 somewhere. It's close by. So it's already interfering with the opponent's pieces. I mean, you might say that the rim of the board, say the d2 square, where that knight started its journey, is not on the edge of the board. It's quite central, but yet, you know, in most cases, it only serves as transfer square for a knight. Because simply on d2, it's too far back. So it has to influence the events in the center and bother opponent's pieces, you know. It's absolutely necessary. That's why the knight went this way. It's certainly an improvement of the knight. Nobody here would think, oh, white must bring the knight back to d2. That would be counterintuitive at the very least. Now, bishop d5, maybe he even looked at bishop d5. Well, it's not really efficient because that knight comes back and protects the bishop. But look what he found. It's amazing. He plays knight a5. The obvious answer is f6, right? Black wants to put that pawn on a5 and finally get the bishop out. Maybe hit some rooks along the way. But then comes the answer. Bishop back. You really have to free your mind from stereotypes and prejudices. You know, like to play like Ivanchuk. In some ways, you know, like he's unstoppable because when he searches for his ideas, he would not be denied. He would look and look. And here it goes. He cleared the c6 square, only at the cost of a knight. Well, Magnus couldn't find a way out. After this, everything comes under attack, you know. It's just impossible to protect everything. Now, if this rook moves away, of course, the knight takes the other rook and then the bishop opens up. There'll be disaster, you know. The black pieces stay. Obviously, the bishop is overloaded, must protect the knight on d6. Bishop b7 was the only move. Now Ivanchuk took the bishop and took on a5. Now look at this. He regains the piece on d6. Simply with the check. It's basically the game already. Well, poor Magnus played a different move. Knight c4, but it didn't really change anything. After forced exchange of the pieces, we arrived in a technical endgame. Oops, no mate. h4. Well, better minor piece, more active rook, and extra pawn to boot. No surprises for the rest of the game, Ivanchuk won. Alright, about Magnus, and actually about all other best players. One thing there, they're confident. They know they belong. They take setbacks in stride. I mean, I saw it during this rapid tournament. Mamedyanov loses a game, comes back, wins. You know, all others. Grishuk loses to Korobov, comes back, wins a couple. And same as Magnus. No, some kind of out of form players, of the top players, the favorites, they had it, you know, a little harder in that tournament. I particularly mentioned the Participants of the Grand Chess Tour, well, the same guys that traveled from Paris to Leuven, Belgium for the Blitz and Rapid, they came to St. Louis, played the Singfield Cup, and then traveled to London earlier this month, played the London Classic. It was basically the same 9 players. They were complemented by Magnus Carlsen in the Blitz and Rapid, by local selections such as Mickey Adams, and by Dingley Ren, who was invited by the Singfield Cup organizers. But basically it was the same 9 guys. Yeah. Hi, John. Welcome. Talking about World Rapid Championship, won by Ivanchuk on tiebreak over Grishuk and Carlsen. So the final standings read with the same score of, I believe, 11 out of 15. We had 3 players, and the tiebreaks decided it in favor of Ivanchuk, Grishuk second, Carlsen third. Speaking of the tiebreaks, do you know what the tiebreak was? The top tiebreak? Oh, Magnus did fantastic in Blitz today. Well, he only lost to Karyakin, but he won an incredible number of games. He won like 9 games. And after 12 rounds, he caught up with Karyakin. They both with 10 out of 12. Tremendous score. About at least a point or maybe point and a half against ahead of the rest of the field. Nakamura has some catching up to do. He is somewhere in the mix, but no, well, he's yet to play the leaders. No, that was 10 out of 12. They played 12 rounds. I actually made the same mistake, as I finished watching round 11 and I thought, okay, Karyakin was 9.5 and Magnus was 9. And I thought, okay, that's it for today. They're going to play 10 tomorrow. I was wrong. They actually played the 12 round. And they're only going to have 9 tomorrow. Only. It's still very challenging to play 9 games of Blitz against best players in the world. No, I don't think Naka choked, He's just out of form. And that brings me back, to that subject I was talking about, the Grand Chess Tour. So 9 guys, well, they nicely compensated. Well, particularly the winner, Wesley So, well, got what? $5,000 short of 300 grand. That's a pretty nice chunk of change to be made in 1 year for a young man. For any man, young man, old man, fantastic. Glad for him. Others, well, Hikaru and Fabiano, well, they also did well. Hikaru finished second in the overall, Fabiano finished third, and they picked up some prize money here and there. And others, even guys like Anand, so he played steadily throughout the whole series of events. Oh, picked up some money, but I mean, money is one thing, of course, I understand, but it's like, it's impossible to enjoy playing the same people over and over again. Maybe that's the reason why Wesley won the series. Just because he's, relatively speaking, a newcomer to this. He's only been on the top for what? It's his 3rd year. So he's still kind of fresh. But for others, how many times can you... And then again, I mean, you have to play elsewhere, right? You can't just only wait for the next Grand Chess Tour series to roll in. And then I just had a feeling that Aronian, MVL, Nakamura, these are the 3 players who we expected to be a stronger factor in the World Rapid Championship. They're fighting it out in Blitz, although not with great success. Right now, I believe MVL is at 8 points and together with Nakamura. No, right, it's not too shabby, right? 8 out of 12, but still, they have a lot of ground to make now on Karyakin and Carlsen. It's 2 points. Joey Chestnut. You lost me here. I don't know who Joey Chestnut is. So anyway, I'm thinking, this adjustment, was hard, It worked somewhat better for Anand. Anand is so experienced, though. He's been through wars, and Anand doesn't overextend himself, and I think he always makes sure he's got something left in the tank. And no, he played real well in the Rapid, which I cannot say about Nakamura and MVL and Aronin. Aronin started well, but faded on the second and third day. And MVL and Hikaru, they never really hit the stride. Some of their games were really depressing. MVL's loss to Grishuk, it's like, I don't know, he just gets beat, with the white pieces with that, like the unrecognizable. So I think they need some recovery time from playing each other. It affects you in many ways. It's not only that you see same faces. Ivanchuk said, I'm happy to play in checkers tournaments because I see new faces over there. I guess he meant to say that he's a little tired, of the chess people he's been competing with, and some of them are retired, okay. But he's been competing on the highest level for 26 years, 27 years. Morozevich, okay, that's interesting, Mora didn't really impress lately, and he kept very low profile. You know that he didn't go into checkers, right? Checkers is just too close to chess. So he's into Go now. So he played some Go tournaments. He even played a match against Tiger Hillar Person, who's known to be a Go player. What about Valentina? Super rapid play in London, it's amazing what she did. Gunin, 9 out of 10 against strong competition there. It's amazing. But, maybe she kind of spent herself because, no, she wasn't really a big factor at the women's rapid tournament. I don't know how she did in Blitz today. But in the rapid, it was all Anna Muzichuk, the older sister, the older of the Muzichuk sisters. Younger one, of course, played Hu Yufan in the World Championship match, Maria. But Anna is a pretty good player of her own, and before Maria's recent surge, she was considered to be the stronger of the two. And she won the Rapid Championship, World Rapid, in a very convincing fashion. Anyway, probably should go back and show you more Carlsen. Okay, so more Carlsen setbacks. Now, that happened at the start of the third day. So Magnus was in the mix, of course. Ivanchuk was leading, but maybe only by half a point. Magnus was right there, right? So Magnus had what? 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. Pretty good score. But it's not only the whole tournament at the start. It's also the start of a playing day. Magnus was totally unrecognizable in this game against another Ukrainian, Anton Korobov. Korobov is an exciting player. I like following him. He plays a lot of open tournaments, and his rating is always a yo-yo, kind of up and down, bouncing around the 2700 mark. But on a good day, he can beat anybody. If you remember in the year 2013, he eliminated Hikaru Nakamura from the Tromsø World Cup. Hikaru was very upset. I guess he underestimated his opponent, and it looked like he played, kind of irresponsibly a bit. But then Kramnik took it very seriously, but he had a hard time getting by Korobov, and when he did, the road was open for Kramnik to win that tournament at 2013. He had to defeat Andreikin in the finals, but already he qualified for the candidates. So Korobov came pretty close, but lately, there's been a lot of disastrous results for him as well. And sometimes he kind of drops off the cliff, like he started off very well in the Ukrainian Championship just a month ago, and I thought he was going to win the tournament because I believe he's the best player over there. I mean, aside of Elyanov, I'm not even sure Elyanov played. But then he kind of butchered the finish. He didn't play well and finished in a full point behind the winner, Alexeyenko. So Korobov, it's like, it's a mixed bag. You don't know what to expect from him. Well, yeah, he said he's too old to be contender in classical chess. Well, in some ways, well, maybe he's been a little coy with that. I understand, but ultimately, this is the direction where people go. Look at Karpov. When he tried to play classical chess some years after his triumph in Linares '94, his results got worse and worse. In the end, he was near the end of bottom of the tournament table and playing very slowly in time trouble in every game. Look up his last tournament performances in the late 1990s. And then Karpov said, and well, how old was Karpov then? No, he wasn't even 50 then, right? Late 40s, granted. And he said, no, no mas, I cannot do this anymore. And since then, he played only rapid events. And he likes to play blitz. He blitzed a lot with Karyakin, part of Karyakin's preparation for a World Championship match. Well, Ivanchuk is 1-1 for us two old dudes, but it's no surprise that he won in the Rapid, because in the Rapid, no, look what happens with old player, I played this tournament in China. I was talking about this last week, but I didn't talk about myself. Well, the thing is that the two tournaments I played, one was Tekirdağ in Turkey, there was a Grandmaster tournament. No, okay, most of these guys were, all of us were old, right? It was more like a veterans event. But regardless, I noticed this. I play well until the rest day. Then, I don't know what it is. It's not like I worry too much, about the outcome of the tournament, but I don't know, I just lose my rhythm. Rhythm is important, so when I prepare, I basically tire myself out. Strangely enough, for older players, it's just better not to prepare. But it's so hard, not to prepare for your one game a day tournaments and kind of to the game when you have all the time there and everybody is sitting in the room and looking at computers and you think you're supposed to do the same thing. The result, well, that older player, he just comes to the board and is not fresh. Then you sit there and then you spend a lot of time. Not because you don't know, because you choose. Maybe you know too much. Well, I noticed that. I sit there, and I can't really decide what to play. So I decide on the opening at least, but 3 or 4 moves into the opening, I don't know what my opponent would play, right? So he plays something and I sit there and I choose. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to choose between two theoretical lines. Bigger and better minds, worked on that for years and they haven't decided yet, I just have to play something. And in Rapid, you're forced to play. You can't sit there for 10 minutes reflecting. And all this time that basically spent on nothing, on reflecting, on, I don't know, thinking and rethinking and, I don't know, second guessing everything. It just does nothing but tire me out. I would much prefer to play Rapid. In Rapid, you sit down and that's it. You go through this game. No, right, maybe it's 1 hour. But after that, you get some short break and then the new game begins. I'm not surprised that both Ivanchuk and Anand did so well in the Rapid. Karyakin is not Ukrainian by birth. When Karyakin was born in the year 1990, it was still the Soviet Union. No, so there was no Ukraine as an independent country, and ethnically he's Russian. So he held the Ukrainian citizenship, obviously for many years played for Ukraine, but not by birth Ukrainian. Ivanchuk is. Okay, so what happened to Magnus here? All right, so he plays. Okay, the London. Everybody plays it, but everybody plays it because Magnus does it. So we know this position already. And now let's move bishop b5. An important game in the development of the London was the game 3 years ago or so between Kamsky and Nakamura. Where in this, I believe in, okay, no, not even in this position. Here, e4. And Hikaru introduced a very interesting novelty, moving the bishop back to e7. refusing to take on e4 and helping that knight from d2 enter play in the center. Instead, bishop e7. And when Gata played logically forward, there was this knight h5. So it turned out that the position of the bishop is unfortunate. Had the bishop been on f4, then you go back to e3 and you laugh at that knight, right? White will have the strong bishop and aiming at the king and all that. But the bishop on g3 is not well positioned. Now, Gata tried more than once this position with white and hardly with any success. So white was looking for some maybe new ideas here, and among them is this move bishop b5. Well, it stops b6 for now, and a6 allows white to take and play this move queen a4, which is little tricky. It was played by Dmitry Andreikin, another very talented Russian player who's actually missing in action here. He would be factor in both Rapid and Blitz. He's a great fast time control player. I think he's in top 10 in the world in both categories. But he didn't travel, I guess, you know, like maybe, well, he's playing in YKZ. So he's probably putting his effort in preparation for that classical tournament, Tata Steel. Anyway, so this is little annoying, and there are these things. Yeah, then black is uncomfortable, you know, somehow got caught in the pin, right? So anyway, bishop b5 is a poisonous move. Now, knight e7 has already been played. It wasn't a novelty, had already been played. So after this, black went b6. Now, I think knight g6 was played before, but I'm not sure. Now Magnus feels like, okay, well, now I do this. So the bishop can no longer step away from the fork e5, and black has to take. So he takes. Now white is threatening, of course, e5 to chase this knight away and win the game by taking on h7. So this is forced. Isn't white just better here? It's not good to take. Bishop takes double attack on the rook and that pawn over there. Korobov, however, is a very sharp player. Just plays knight g6. Okay, Magnus takes the pawn. There comes bishop b7. Alright, probably, I don't know, probably if that was the classical time control game, maybe Magnus would have said, I don't want that pawn, I would have played this. Get the bishop, now the pawns are nicely positioned, restricting the knights. And on this, let's just come back. Look at this knight, it's very comfortable. Maybe white is somewhat better here. He'll play queen e2. b2 is safely covered. Broken pawns there. Something there for Magnus to work with. But I guess, you know, he figured, I mean, it's a pawn, right? So bishop b7. So he took on f6 and took the pawn. Indeed, it appears that black, if he takes back on b6, has marginal compensation. Not more. Suddenly came e5. So Korobov is playing ultra sharp. Speaking of which, time and again I repeat the same thing. You know, when you play against Magnus Carlsen, this is your only chance. Really. I mean, I'm looking at this guy Ryazantsev, right? He's a Russian guy. Well, he's been around for quite some time. Coached Karpov even, you know, and was maybe still is a coach of the Olympic women's team. And he plays good chess too. You know, like this year, I mean, he won the Russian championship. And then he's not a bad rapid player either. European Rapid Championship he won ahead of Andreikin and many others. Granted, all the top players they were saving themselves for the big event, for the World Championship. But what was my best rating ever? 2660. FIDE. Some 2751, I believe, USCF. Yeah. Do I have any chess book suggestions? It's not really a topic of our conversation, and I mean, I don't know. You should probably ask John Watson. I really don't buy a whole lot of chess books. Well, I don't know. Particularly on openings, I never buy books on openings. I like books, that deal with kind of with general theory of chess, and there are books sort of a more conceptual nature. I don't like instructional books. To give an example, I don't know, I like a lot. I mean, it goes back many years, 20 years almost. I like John Watson's book, Secrets of Modern Chess Strategy, Advances since Nimzovich. I didn't particularly like the sequel to this because I don't like sequels. I like The Seven Deadly Chess Scenes by John Rawson. It was an excellent book. So books like this I like. When people, I don't know, they just talk about general stuff. Put it this way. Did I miss any more questions? Okay, anyway, back to the move e5. So it creates the threat of e4, and Magnus takes. Now it begs the question, why didn't he continue taking? Do little checkers Ivanchuk style. Maybe something bothered him. Maybe the fact that he cannot castle short, but I mean, the black bishop, of course, could go to a6, but maybe the king is okay in the center because that rook can come out. And I don't know how to explain this. I don't think black has complete compensation here, full compensation. He has some kind of a practical compensation. Maybe he'll play rook d8. Queen a4. Okay, now we can take here. Maybe he was bothered by this a little bit. There's not enough pawns near the king. But black is having a hard time bringing his rook over to the h-file. White, in the meantime, is planning on something standard. Oh, excuse me, please. Something like rook e1, rook e3 to evict that queen. I mean, basically, white can afford losing this pawn. If he trades queens, he has the winning advantage kind of built in. But black shouldn't mess around and go in rook d2, I don't know, when this pawn is still alive. So anyway, I believe that white is better, and maybe if Magnus had more time, he would have gone for it. But somehow he just got fascinated with this idea. He played queen d7. So, speaking about Ryazantsev, right? So this guy Ryazantsev, okay, fine. He's not a bad player, not a bad rapid player, clearly. He played Magnus twice. He played him in the rapid already in the blitz. I mean, it's just both times I think he lost with white. He played so passively. I mean, seriously, haven't you learned anything? Okay, maybe Karyakin played passively and he didn't lose in the regulation, but it was pressure on Magnus World Championship match, plus, a couple of lucky escapes from Sergei. And most importantly, Sergei Karyakin is a great defender, which Ryazantsev maybe not. I mean, you really don't have much hope, Just look at the games. Just simply look how Magnus plays, particularly in rapid and blitz. Everything is just like he plays quicker. He doesn't try to obtain much out of the opening. Gets a comfortable position, plays quicker and more accurately than the opponents. Do you really expect yourself to be able to stay with Magnus like this? No, you won't be able to. No, and no. Again, your only chance is to create some kind of a mess on the board. Yeah, Magnus can be a little irresponsible and maybe he can blunder sometimes. But Korobov did the right thing. So after this move, he takes on b6. And Magnus, who obviously counted on the winning move queen h3, at that moment discovered, oh no, I'm not winning. There is this move, f6. The king escapes. And now we have a situation. Well, what to do? If we castle, then the queen is kinda out of place, no longer supported by the rook. Now we have to worry about losing the b2 pawn. And it's only one pawn now. Already white's advantage is, maybe it's still there, but you have to prove it, you have to fight for it. And then Magnus overreacted badly. Now this. Alright. Okay, I can understand this. I really cannot. I can relate to this. I've seen this before. But I mean, the opponent doesn't have to blunder in this. Korobov played this move, bishop takes. Not only it hits the rook, more importantly, it takes away h3. So Magnus's combination is not working. I have no other explanation to Magnus's decision to play queen d7, and particularly knight g5, aside of the fact that he thought he was winning by force. Missed something tactical. And after that, the turnaround is dramatic, to say the least. I mean, black is threatening, of course, to take, then c3 will fall. The king's caught in the middle, no more, not a chance to evacuate the king. So Magnus played castles, giving up the exchange already, but of course black doesn't have to do this, because it would clear out the h3 square for the combination again. No, he does this. The bishop is stronger than the white rooks. What to do? Nothing. He can just keep taking stuff here, and eventually he'll take on g5. Magnus did this. Oh, he's trying, right? Queen h4 and then mate. This is pretty cool reply. I mean, you're not just dealing, you know, okay, it's not like Magnus doesn't respect his opponents. But sometimes, I don't know, I think there was something childish about this play. Okay, that's really not characteristic for Magnus. But maybe the fact is that he kept himself in check, you know, behaving during this World Championship match, a lot of responsibility, had to play accurate openings and all that, you know. Got the job done and just wants to have fun, but no, here it's no mate. The king then will escape to e7. In the meantime, black's counterattack is just murder. Take there and then take on b3. Played king b1, takes. Mate and a couple of moves is threatening. Magnus lands, you know, one last tactical shot. Deflection on the mate. Korobov coolly replies. Rook back to c8. There's just nothing to do here. Position's totally lost. On top of everything else, what else is threatening? Queen f5 to pick off the knight. Anyway, Magnus gave up. Okay, such a setback, right? At the start of the last day in round 11. In the meantime, Jan Nepomнящий picked up the steam. He was just steamrolling over people, and it seemed like that Magnus simply could not compete anymore in this tournament. But as we probably learned a long time ago, you know, you can never count Magnus out. And there he went on his trademark finish and run. I start with, okay, well, let's do it one by one, right? Maybe you can catch them all. I only have fragments. In this game, Magnus faced with a very young and very talented Indian player. Now, the Indian school of chess, of course, produced Anand, and some other pretty good players. Now we have Pentava Hare Krishna, who's kind of knocking on the door in the top 10 in the world. He's a pretty good player. At some moment, he closed the gap with Anand to just single digits. But, no, maybe at some moment he will overtake Anand. But Hare Krishna is already in his early 30s. What about young talent? And this guy, Santosh Vidit, I think he's extremely talented. I watched his games in this rapid tournament, and he showed great composure and great endgame technique. He won a couple of rook endgames, like check out the one he defeated Vashcheva Graf. It wasn't easy. Great composure, in a short time control. He's a pretty good all-around player. So Magnus had his hands full. And this position appears to be unclear, right? I mean, black has his trumps there. Okay, the knight on e4, and who knows whose king is going to be weaker. It's hard to tell. And Magnus is totally back against the wall, right? Seriously, like, he's only 7 out of 11. He was like a point and a half, if not 2 points behind people. He really needed to catch up. No more points to lose, even half points. So rook d7. Okay, covering the 7th rank, looks like a good, solid, accurate move. And then Magnus uncorks. This looks so unclear, like whose pawns are gonna be stronger. It's hard to tell. But the point is a tactical shot e6. When Magnus played it, I couldn't figure out, what is this? He's given up that pawn. What is that he has in mind? No pins possible. What is this? And then it came to me. Vidit was thinking. I was thinking too. I realized, that was a great tactical idea. You almost like you watch Magnus play and you think it's just only gonna look for some exchanges and some better endgames. But there was no possibility of a better endgame in this game. So he cooked up this tremendous combination. He would have played rook c7. Now you must take. That was a whole rook, right? There. And now a quiet move, rook g1. Quiet, but with a lot of poison in it. Okay, the main threat is queen check and then take that rook with mate. Now, if the rook moves away, then it's easy mate. First is check, forcing the king up, and then mate from h4. What's left? Only to bring this guy back, right? No, maybe you play queen h7. The same thing, now this. The queens or pushes the rook away, and then you go there, and then it takes. Ridiculous, but there is no defense. Rook d8 also e7. Now it cuts the queen off, and now mate next. Tremendous idea, well, queen h6 first, it was also okay. I agree with you, but rook g1, I don't know. It's kind of you choose. You probably winning anyhow. You take the rook, but I mean, great idea e6. But I give credit to the young Indian player. He saw this. He plays this, and now this position is only somewhat better for white. No, well, it's better for white. Put it this way. I mean, he puts pressure against f5. His king is safer because this one's totally open. h2 covers. Yeah, black could have played this and then maybe rook e5. No, it's gonna be white pretty much, choosing what to do. But it's still, like, no, there would be a fight, So I think it was an unfortunate decision to play e3. Just nothing materialized out of this. Very cool play from Magnus, and he sidesteps everything, and now the e3 pawn is gone. Computers were showing forced mate after this. Not even queen takes f5. No, this check. No, but that's just... I mean, it's hard to imagine, a human player worrying about this stuff. They would do this if there was no simpler way. I mean, indeed, it's a win. So you must step away from capture with check, and then this white mates. White mates. Okay, that's computer line. It's not my doing, I would not even look at this. Neither did Magnus. Magnus just played rook g1 because pretty much the outcome of the game is already decided. Now it's going to be the d pawn and the various mating threats. d6, this deflection. The rook cannot go anywhere because of the mate. Speaking of deflections, this one, if you take on queen d4. Back to c3, d7. Yeah, cakewalk, of course, in the end, but you gotta give Magnus credit for finding this whole idea. It wasn't really that visible. Here he finishes the game with this nice move. Well, the dominating queen takes away c1. Very accurate calculation, and no, Magnus can do this. He just chooses not to get positions like this every time. But I will mention that, well, the end was rather easy, but to think up this whole concept, beginning with bishop takes c4, that was not easy to do. Not even with plenty of time on the clock in a rapid game. It shows Magnus's determination, a great win. Okay, let's look at this guy Ryazantsev, right? I mean, I don't want to look at the whole game. He played horribly passive chess. And, I mean, just let Magnus have his way. And, gradually... No, Magnus won a pawn, he had an active rook, and White actually gave up a pawn to force a trade of rooks. And now he's clinging to this hope of fortress, right? Now, the talk of fortress was big during the World Championship match, because Karyakin actually caught Magnus in a couple of fortresses in the match. Magnus reacted to this in a typical fashion. He said, I don't believe in fortresses. It's not just a catchy turn of a phrase. That's really his philosophy. He doesn't bother himself with how I'm going to win this, how I'm going to break through. As long as he can see the improvement in his position, he will play on. And that's what it is. It's high percentage chess. Because in the end, you can't argue with success. He wins a lot of positions that may seem like a fortress. Much more often than indeed he gets caught in a fortress. Like in this situation. Now, the g-pawn has to stay there. Importantly, he brings the bishop there. Look how he restricted the white knight. Maybe you can configure some kind of position, I don't know, with the white knight elsewhere. I don't know, on e5 or given a check from d5. And then you can claim, of course, and then that would be a fortress. But pawn structure is only one feature, of the position. That's where the pieces are, that's what counts. And absolutely no way, white could get the knight out of that corner. Alright, so he waits. And now this. This is the kind of move that... Didn't your mama tell you never do this, eh? Put your pawns, on the same cover squares as your bishop and leave yourself with the useless backward pawn. Well, the answer is Zugzwang. Not only Magnus restricts that knight, he puts the knight in Zugzwang, forcing white to only play with the king. Now, This is the key. So he went back to d4. No, well, after that, you know. So my question was, what happens after king d6? The knight has no moves, but the king shuffles kind of back and forth and prevents the blocking from going through. And if white gets to come closer and take on f5, then the knight jumps right back into this. Maybe white will win. I mean, for a rapid game, it's just incredible how fast and accurate, you know, Magnus Carlsen calculates variations. Look what he prepared. This move. I bet he prepared this. Now, choices. White has to capture something, right? Let's start with this. It's a check. King up. I can not do any more checks. Knight c3. Hitting the bishop. f3 protects it. And now in reply to this check, accurate reply king g6. Not king g5. King g5 would allow e5. And now the knight stops the f-pawn, at least for now. So that's unnecessary. But king g6 gets the job done. Now the pawn wins. Ahead of the white pawn, of course. Huh. Okay. Are you guys impressed? You know, you've been very quiet. You know. Tell me something. Aren't you impressed, you know, that a player can play endgames like this in rapid chess? Most of examples we find in books, you know, on such execution, they're not only the outcome of prolonged thinking during the game. Often, you know, they were worked out during the analysis of adjourned games. To find this, e takes, right? Now, white... I mean, it's almost like he's gonna jump out and get with the knight, but he doesn't get to do it. King f5 of all moves. Now you play this, and here, and you out. But you pinned, and you lose. It's just amazing how with the active king and the white simply cannot find any defense. Okay, and the last line is g takes. Is this even a line? What am I gonna do? I cannot play g3, and I should not play this. Now the white knight has the g3 square. You do it wrong, you know, not only you're not gonna win, you're probably gonna lose the game. So tell me what the right move is now. After g takes. It's Capablanca-like. Okay, well, that's the... They don't come very often, you know, but when they do come, you know, it's impressive. Talents like this. But without f4, you know, this whole plan, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. That's why I assume, you know, Magnus would have played f4. So the winning move in this position is, of course, bishop f3. Then the king travels forward and comes and attacks the knight. I mean, white will actually get the queen here, right? If we analyze this whole thing. Oh no, he won't get the queen. The bishop can stop this pawn, of course. But I mean, even if he had gotten the queen, he would still be lost. Because black is up a piece and He's gonna win the e3 pawn and win the game. Those pawns, they hardly matter on the queen side. So f4 was winning. He went back, and now, of course, king e6. Now black is gonna win the king battle. Up position. Up. The only move is king b3. He must keep the black king away from c4. There came the trademark. Same thing, we've seen this before. White was able to bring the king, but he's gonna once again lose the game because of Zugzwang. Unreal. That's what it is. I mean, obviously, I have great appreciation for endgame play, and probably my greatest success in chess came because of good handling of the endgame. But I mean, I can just watch and admire this. All right, so that put Magnus in a position to take on the leader. Jan Nepomнящий. In the meantime, Ivanchuk was a beneficiary of a horrible blunder by Anand, who simply blundered a piece in the endgame. But some people said, oh, Ivanchuk got lucky. Yeah, right, you know. So he only played chess for 30 years and came so close so many times that now somebody blunders something, and the talk of the town is that lucky Ivanchuk. Lucky Ivanchuk is, I mean, I've never heard this before. But Magnus not only did it for himself, right, when he defeated Nepomнящий. Nepomнящий was just killing everybody. It also enabled the eventual winner's circle, Ivanchuk and Grishuk, to catch up, because otherwise, I mean, Grishuk had to beat Nepomнящий in the last round, but before the penultimate round, Nepomнящий was a full point ahead of the field. Now, about Jan Nepomнящий, obviously, great talent he is. But I was saying about people like Anish Giri, who didn't even show up at this tournament, and who else we missing? Kramnik. Okay, Kramnik's maybe tired. Topalov obviously had enough. So who else is missing from the Grand Chess Tour crowd? Wesley So. Wesley probably is just... Probably he's afraid of going into a too high a tax bracket, you know, so he's counting his chickens now, so... I mean, it's understandable. Must be strange to play your former second. No, well, I think we're reading too much into a relationship. They have a friendly kind of relationship, I think, Jan and Magnus, but I don't think they work together so much that... Besides, they always knew that, no, their rivalry is going to be resumed. Well, they competed against each other in youth tournaments, and then Jan took some time off, kind of, you know, well, honing his skills in video games, and now he's 26 years old. He said, enough is enough. I'm going to totally focus on chess, and give him credit. He raised his rating by a lot. He's knocking on the door there in top 10. He's currently number 11, won the Town Memorial, and obviously played quite well and leading this tournament after 13 rounds. But look at Magnus. It's a must-win game. And he plays this line in the Caracan. No, Magnus just has this ability not to worry about the result. He knows if he plays well, it will come. That's the confidence of strength. And you just can't help but be affected by this. It just gets to you because it's like, what? the guy is supposed to play like, I don't know, the knight or whatever, and he plays this in a must-win game. Wesley is scheming. Yeah, Wesley is a schemer. Okay, yeah. They need to be creative, put it this way. I hope there is some good charity, around whatever. I obviously never had to deal with this problem, and I never will. How to deal with the windfall, come tax time. $300,000. And he probably made more. I think he played some other tournaments. Anyway, so Magnus does this, and I mean, it's actually not such a bad line. Well, maybe, but I mean, usually white has the knight on g1 and the bishop on d3. Then they happily play queen e2 check. But here, queen e2 check, he may play bishop e7 and the queen is awkward on e2. So Jan played this instead. Okay, well, I can't say that white is worse, but it's a comfortable position for Magnus. Not so comfortable for Nepomniachtchi. He needs to learn how to deal with these situations. He needs some seasoning, He needs to play some tournaments on top level. Because sometimes, well, you just have to go for the result. Maybe it's not going to win you a whole lot of fans at the moment as you're doing this, but ultimately, you have to be able to finish tournaments. And for that, sometimes you just have to get the result. Look at Wesley. Wesley got the result, right? It's not like he crushed his opposition in all these tournaments and Sinquefield Cup and London Classic. He just played well enough to win, and when he was in the lead, so he said fine. He didn't mind making draws. It's very mature. And I guess Jan is just, all right, you can question this. Yeah, keep the pawn on c3 and, don't weaken your d4 pawn. But anyway, just enjoy Magnus playing this. So he starts irritating his opponent with little things. Like that queen to h5. Then followed by capture on h3. And he did it at the right moment, stopping white from playing bishop f5. Maybe that's the lost tempo somewhere on the two bishop moves. Maybe unnecessary move h3, but he wanted to stop bishop g4. Now he played c5, and that's a game changer. Now, that exchange of light square bishops is no longer that attractive, because white has surrendered the d5 square and made a backward pawn on his position. Maybe rook a d1 was unnecessary and this whole thing, but I mean, Magnus just conducts the game with iron hand and doesn't have to worry about this. Already he has more pleasant position. Now, is it possible for white just to grind his teeth here and just make a draw? Maybe. How to do this? You start with good old Capablanca advice. When in trouble, trade rooks. White is not in trouble in the position here, but he's in trouble psychologically. Because he's certainly not happy with the way the opening worked out. Trade rooks and sit. Try to trade everything. If you can. Keep your king on f1, right? Maybe it was a good move to start with. King f1. Then trade and trade again. If he puts the queen on the e file, you have queen e2. This activity was absolutely inappropriate. And Magnus reacted to this beautiful way. He won this game not only on the board, he won the psychological battle here. For the second time in the game, he just indicates some attack on the king side, and that kind of spooks Nepomniachtchi. I'm not sure Magnus really wanted to play g4 next. Maybe he didn't want to play g4. he would break up his pawns. But overreacting. Oh, Magnus loves this kind of trade. Now, there is no doubt, right? And then trades one pair of rooks, which is essential. Grabs the B file. Thank you for opening it. Now it's already very difficult to defend. Maybe it doesn't even take Magnus Carlsen from this point on to win. But Magnus, of course, the best in the business, so he did it very convincingly. I like this move. Maybe he should have waited for the pawn to come to h5. He would have some kind of h4. But he had to do it before going knight h2. Now, Magnus is not going to play any stupid moves. He knows what to do. He infiltrates. Jan gives it a nice effort. So he's looking for tactics, trying to get to the black king. But Magnus has the answer. There's only one check. The king is going to be safe on h7. Economical defense. And after this, he played that move. It was simply impossible. I mean, the threat was knight e5. It was simply possible to defend this bishop without giving up the pawn on c5. I believe on this, there would be this, maybe just that. You still have to go queen e8 or something, and then queen takes c5. It doesn't matter, so he lost the pawn on c5, and basically the rest of the game was very easy. Only now the h-pawn goes forward, when the situation in the center has been resolved, and black always has this check, and he prepares to meet h3 with g3 with h4. So that extra pawn, double pawn, but it keeps the king safe, and of course the knight is much more useful piece than the bishop in such situations. There was no defense here. Now, of course, g2 is open. Magnus just gets there. Check. And this. Nice work. Beautiful victory. And then it set the stage. 5 players entered the last round, all tied at the top. And the matchups. Carlsen has white against Mamedyanov. As they say, his client. I believe that near every game Carlsen played Mamedyanov, he won. I remember when they had the Shamkir tournament, Gashimov Memorial, Magnus won that tournament, although he struggled a little bit because he beat Shakhriyar twice and some other tournaments. The two Russians. Grishuk has white against Nepomniachtchi. Obviously, Nepo was dejected after this game. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to lose when you're leading the tournament and about to win it. And nobody wants to lose to Magnus Carlsen in such situation. People say, no, well, when Magnus cranks it up, you know, like, you're not in his league. I think that bothered Jan more. Just the fact, you know, that he lost with white like this in a situation like this to Magnus. Well, now he has to be careful because remember what happened with Hikaru Nakamura. He struggled, you know, for what? 12, 13 losses before he finally won one game against Magnus. Cost him a lot. Nobody knows where Hikaru would be rating-wise if it wasn't for his losses to Magnus. Yeah, okay, Jan will probably figure it out, but no, well, and then was Ivanchuk. Ivanchuk got the easy opponent, Melkumian, the young Armenian player, but it was a tremendous game from Vasily. Unfortunately, I kind of ran out of time, but you can revisit all the key games from the last round. Look at our library, the World Rapid, and look at these games, and you'll feel the tension. Ultimately, white won every game. And Ivanchuk's win was the most important because he had the top tie breaks. And in a three-way tie between Ivanchuk, Grishuk, and Carlsen, Ivanchuk emerged with gold, Grishuk with silver, and Carlsen with bronze. But all three had a fantastic tournament, and I think, regardless of the tie breaks, Magnus proved once again that he remains the best rapid player in the world. His rating gap actually, I think, increased even. Yeah, okay. Oh, speaking of tie breaks, when do I stream again? Well, I don't know. Borch. We will decide that, This show is bi-weekly, so once in 2 weeks. Well, we don't know. I would like to do a YKZ preview. Let me look at the calendar. It's always going to be on Thursday. I might do it on the 12th to do the YKZ preview. I think that's been lacking, I talk a lot about events that already finished. I would love to do the 12th and then maybe the 26th when we can talk about the YKZ tournament. I'm not sure it's going to be over yet. So 2 Thursdays in January. Yeah, Happy New Year. Yeah, we'll figure it out. It's going to be in the calendar. One last comment. The first tiebreak was the average rating of opponents. I may be a little rusty on my math, but doesn't this put Magnus Carlsen at disadvantage? He cannot play himself. So his opponents who played him would get the 2900, which is his 29 something, that was his rapid rating. And he gets less. Would that be enough to make up the difference? I'm not sure. Not over the... And besides, if they use Buchholz, that the standings would be the same. Ivanchuk, Grishuk, and Carlsen. So I guess, it's all fair, but nonetheless. Now, predictions. I already mentioned that they played 12 rounds of the Blitz and Carlsen and Karyakin in the lead. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with Karyakin. I thought he was totally spent after the World Championship match, and he played like it in the rapid part. He did not distinguish himself at all. But from the start of the Blitz, he played extremely well, and he beat Carlsen head to head, and he beat both Nepomniachtchi and Grishuk as well. Tremendous, and he played a very strong field. He's now ahead on tie breaks, but no, there's still some tough games ahead. I don't know. I'll go out on a limb and I'll tell you that maybe Carlsen's luck, will not, or luck or whatever. Maybe bad luck will strike Magnus. I have a feeling that Karyakin will win this tournament. Go out on a limb with that. I expect a big surge from Nakamura and Nepomniachtchi. They're going to be in the mix. Carlsen will probably going to be at the podium, maybe second, most likely second. But, well, I don't think that either Karyakin or Carlsen will dominate the field the way they did on the first day. It just cannot carry on to the next day. Well, it's going to be a less impressive final score, not projecting 10 out of 12 to some kind of, I don't know, 18 out of 21. That's not going to happen, no. So, okay. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys, and Happy New Year to you all. I hope you're enjoying your holidays, and let's finish watching the Blitz, and then, let's be patient, a couple of weeks before the YKZ tournament. Have fun. Bye.